What would you be willing to do to assure that your child had the best advantage for a successful, satisfying life? Most parents in the room would say almost anything. Our children are great gifts to us. They are our stewardship. We do our best to provide for them, protect them, care for them. It's noble, good work to want the best for our children. But this week, I have been reading up on the lengths parents will go to assure the best possible advantage for a successful, satisfying life. On the Gold Coast of Australia, there is a serious overcrowding problem in the best public school district in Australia. What's happening is that parents who live out of district are pooling together their money to rent a really cheap apartment in the district so that their children can go to school there. So two families will get together, put their money together, rent the nastiest two-bedroom apartment possible, never step foot in it, but have an address so that their child can go to the most sought-after schools in the district. Serious overcrowding. Here's another story from New York. As you know, college admissions is getting more and more competitive. Every time I'm at Mercer, I am reminded I couldn't get in now. So some New York parents are getting increasingly concerned about their child getting into the right high school in order to position them to get into the right college. And all this is true for Atlanta too, you know this. But getting into the right private high school in New York means in many cases getting into that school's elementary school to position to be in the high school to be able to go to the best college. And the only way to ensure a good chance of a good placement into a good elementary school in the private system of New York is to get your child in one of the most competitive preschools in all of New York. Getting into a quality preschool is a big deal. These schools are referred to as the baby Ivies, because these are the schools that can set the track for you to get your child into the best private elementary school, high school, and so forth. One of the features of these baby Ivies is that they will help the child prep for the entrance exam to elementary school. Yes, I just said that. They will help the child get prepped for the entrance exam to get into elementary school. But not every child who goes to one of those will get in. This is another story I read this week. I learned that in 2011, Nicole Impresia sued her child's preschool, arguing that the preschool failed to adequately prepare her daughter for New York City's highly competitive private school system. The judge did throw that one out of court, but she sued. Maybe she should have hired the company Smart City Kids. This is another article. Smart City Kids is a company that specializes in helping with the exhausting process of competing for a slot in New York City's preschool market. You can hire one of their consultants for $4,000 to help with the preschool application process. What would you do to give your child the best advantage for a successful, satisfying life? Almost anything. But before we judge, let's admit that if we had the resources, we might do the same. Who knows? Haven't we all done the most we could for our children's success that was within our means, within our power? What wouldn't you do to help advantage your child to have the most successful, satisfying life possible? By the way, if after the service I can help you get your child into the preschool at Second-Ponce, I should probably, if after the service you want to talk about it, it's the premier preschool in all of Atlanta, I have some pull, talk to me. We'll see about it. But what would you say if I told you that most Atlanta parents who are going to these extremes, what if I told you that most of their children will be half formed for a successful, satisfying life? When the Apostle Paul wrote to the struggling church meeting in Colossae, and he referenced another struggling congregation in Laodicea, he's writing to encourage them, to unite them, and he says, so that they may have all the riches of assured understanding. There is something rich about assured understanding, and understanding is different from intellect. To have intellect without understanding, to have knowledge without wisdom, is to be half formed. I'll say that again. To have intellect without understanding, to have knowledge without wisdom, is to be half formed. Several years ago, you probably read about the research done by Daniel Goleman that led to his book, Emotional Intelligence. Goleman began researching valedictorians, people with really high IQs, and he tracked their later success. And he found out that IQ is actually not a predictor of success. So he continued his research to learn more and more about what is a predictor of success. And he determined that most successful people share emotional capacities that he calls EQ, or emotional intelligence. The Apostle Paul might have called it the riches of assured understanding. Because people who are formed for intellectual excellence and not formed for emotional and spiritual maturity are only half formed. The apostle continues in his letter, that they may have the knowledge of God's mystery, that is Christ himself, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. The goal of a fully formed human is to grow in the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, wisdom found in God's mystery, that is Christ himself. Wisdom and knowledge, or you are only half formed. I love this example of the difference between wisdom and knowledge, written by a British journalist, Miles Kington. He wrote, "Intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in fruit salad." Smart only gets you halfway there, right? The scriptures have a lot to say about wisdom. I could finish out the sermon just quoting the Bible about the value, the primacy of wisdom. But I've selected just a few verses from the book of Proverbs. Steve Rotz read already one of those selections. But Proverbs is written as a children's book. It's a primer intended with these short, little, easy-to-memorize sentences for the teaching of children. That way, parents can memorize these little statements of wisdom, and if they're out working in the field, they can state the little statement of wisdom to help the child become wise. If they're sitting at the dinner table, quote a proverb, help shape the child in wisdom. Here are a few, all from the book of Proverbs. "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. A person of understanding delights in wisdom. How much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight rather than silver. The one who gets wisdom loves life. The one who cherishes understanding will soon prosper. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom, and the one who gets understanding, for the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. If we want our children to have the best chance at a successful, satisfying life, we will lead them in the path of knowledge and the path of wisdom. Wisdom found in God's mystery is the curriculum of the church. It is a sad irony to me that parents who are hiring preschool consultants and using flashcards at the dinner table because they care so much about their child and his or her successful future will ignore the curriculum of assured understanding, the curriculum of the church that leads into the mystery of Christ and the fullness of wisdom. So here we are, beginning of another school year. Some of you are preparing for the new rhythms of the academic year. You've got the calendar at home, plotting all the stuff in, the home games and the band practice and the test days and homecoming and the parent-teacher conferences. Are you also putting in the other curriculum? The curriculum of the church that gives primary attention to helping your child grow also in wisdom. The dates of all the children's ministry activities and the youth ministry dates from the church. By the way, you probably saw already on the back of the bulletin that a week from Wednesday, we are kicking off Family Fun Night here at the church. All of our families, our children, our youth, everybody in one big room to kick off this year's curriculum of wisdom. If you've been keeping up with the news, then you know that political advisor Paul Manafort is having a bad week. He's in court, having been indicted of conspiracy against the United States, conspiracy to launder money, failure to file reports of a foreign bank and financial accounts, being an unregistered agent of a foreign principal, false and misleading FARA statements, and false statements. His bail was revoked. He was sent to jail under charges of obstruction of justice and witness tampering, alleged to have occurred while he was under house arrest. Now, Paul Manafort is also a double graduate of Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Georgetown is a highly selective university. This year they will only accept about 14.5% of the applications they receive. He has an undergraduate degree and a law degree from this prestigious university. He is really smart. Some people are half-formed. I want something different for our children. The children we saw scampering around and grabbing backpacks and all, I want something different for them. I don't want them to just be smart. And I'm a fan of education. I have to be. I'm married to a retired school teacher. I stayed in formal education myself until I finished my doctorate. I am a fan of education. I want the children of this church to push themselves to the limits of their intellectual capacity. I want them to study and learn and read and think. And if God is the author of all truth, then Christians should never be afraid of learning or intimidated by the advances of science. If God is the originator of all things true, then anything true teaches us something else about God. I take issue with my clergy friends who want to treat science and learning and knowledge as enemies of the gospel. I want our children, the children of this church, to be as smart and as well-read as possible. I want them to be critical thinkers. I want them to push their God-given intellect, but it is only half of what they need. I started this sermon by asking, what would you do to give your child the best advantage for a successful, satisfying life? Are you doing all in both halves that you can to make sure your child gets the treasures of wisdom and knowledge, as the apostle said? Your church is doing all we can do. Today is Heather Webb's first Sunday with us, and as you get to know Heather, you will experience the truth that Second-Ponce has no higher commitment than our commitment to these children. Heather's wonderful. And she's gonna be here all in, wide open. Her commitment to be a partner with you in shaping your children into fully formed adults is without measure. And I can assure you, if you are here when we are here, your child will hear the stories and sing the songs and memorize the verses and see the models to help shape him or her into being a fully alive, fully whole person he or she was created to be. What would you do to give your child the best advantage for a successful, satisfying life? This week I was channel surfing and ran across an interview with a pro athlete, and I didn't catch it all, and I'm not even sure who it is, so forgive me for getting the details wrong. But this is the gist of the story. I think it was the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz. But anyway, the person who was doing the interview was prodding with questions like, he had hurt his knee. He was out for a while. The interviewer was asking things like this. Isn't this the worst thing that's ever happened? When did you feel like just giving up completely? That sort of thing. And the athlete finally said to the interviewer, no, I'm a person of faith. A hurt knee is not the end of everything. I live for more important things than football. And I thought, our church is going to be known for helping shape fully formed adults who are both smart and wise. Isn't that what we want? Because getting them smart enough is only halfway there. This curriculum is for all of us. I've been challenging the parents. But for these children to be fully formed, it means the grandparents in this room need to be alongside, the surrogate aunts and uncles. We all have a responsibility to model for them what fully alive, whole living looks like. So join me in this year being all we can be for the children in our care. Amen. Let's stand and sing and respond.